concept design, budget, schedule, and funding. And I will turn it over to Mark Rogers from CCS. So good evening, everyone. I'll be brief to begin with. We're basically going to go through the concept phase reports. At the last board meeting, we were directed to, or you're asked to package a $7.7 million project cost. And what that package includes is clarification of what the project scope is, the project budget, how it breaks down, a potential project schedule, as well as looking at a summary of the funding options. So I think the first thing to do tonight is to go through, let Sheehan Nagel Hartrick go through the concept that aligns to that $7.7 million project budget. And then from there, we'll go through at a high level the budget, schedule, and finances. A lot of that information is information that has been gone through in the past, but I will give a high level overview. And if there's any questions from the board, we can have that discussion. So with that being said, Don, if you could take over the reins, that would be great.
Okay, I'm sharing my screen. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to start with a description of the improvements that are being made to the library as part of this project. The drawing that you see consists of the two floor plans for the library building. On the bottom is the lower level floor plan for orientation. This is the north side of the building facing Front Street. This is the upper floor plan, which occupies just a small portion above the lower floor plan. I'm going to start at the building entry and move through it from there. One of the things that we're doing is relocating the building entry to the center of the library, which is actually very consistent with the original design for the library. It's also common public library design so that when you walk in the front door, you have minimum travel distance to get to wherever you want to go inside the library. In order to mark that new entry location, we're proposing to put a new canopy on the outside of the building as a way of demarcating where the entry to the building is. It's a rather confusing issue at the library right now, and this will help to address that. One of the advantages of relocating the entry here is that it allows us to get a new main service desk directly inside the entry to the lobby that allows people to check out books, but it also serves a kind of security function right near the front door. So right now with the existing library entry at the end of the building where the meeting rooms are, there really is no service desk down there. So in order to maintain security, it requires additional staffing by the library to make sure that there's somebody down there. As you come further into the building, we are including two new family restrooms that are centrally located off of the main lobby for the building. This is something that's lacking in the current building and has become very common in public library design. To the right, as you move through the lobby and turn to the right, you enter the new youth services area. Youth services is currently located on the second floor. It's very difficult to get through. If you're a parent coming with kids and strollers, you have to go up a level in order to get to it. This would be much more convenient and usable for parents and families coming to visit the library because you come in the front door and the youth services area is right on the same floor, right adjacent to the new lobby and the new entry. Youth services will include an entirely redesigned youth services area that'll include new program room and other amenities to the youth services area. One of the things that I want to point out on these drawings, the areas that you see in gray are existing areas of the building that we are proposing to leave as is. So this is an effective way to control the budget for the project by reutilizing as much of the existing library building as we can, and really focusing this proposal really focuses the improvements on the public areas of the library as opposed to the back of house areas of the library. Moving to the left, as you come in off of the main lobby, we have the adult services area. This would be the fiction collection and popular collections that are located on the first floor. Again, very convenient for people coming to visit the library who want access to things like audiovisual collections and things like that. Um, we're adding a new drive-up service window that I'll discuss more when we look at the exterior of the building. But this gray box here is the existing circulation department, which we are leaving where it is right now, and we have found a way to incorporate a new drive-up service window directly into the circulation department located there right now. Part of the plan also includes adding additional small group study rooms, which are a high demand space in public libraries, including the Lyle Public Library. There are a couple of existing study rooms that we're going to preserve, and then we're also going to add a couple of new study rooms across from it here, and also one where the existing entry into the building is at the far east end of the building located here. One of the other improvements to the new library plan is introducing a dedicated teen area. This has become very important design element in public library design as a way of keeping kids who kind of outgrow going to the library with their parent, keeping them engaged in the library so that they become lifelong library users. So there'll be a dedicated teen area here. The goal here is to give them enough privacy that it feels like it's their space, but also to keep it kind of easy to monitor and open to the public areas as well. So that's an important new feature in the library renovation. Moving up to the second floor of the building, again, the gray area that you see here, currently this is the youth services area, and these are the youth services workspaces up here, the back of house spaces for staff. We're going to reuse those except for adult services staff instead of youth services staff. So again, another way of effectively controlling the budget for the project. The upper floor then is primarily given over to the nonfiction collection. There'll be a quiet study room up here. We're also proposing to add a single-use restroom up here as well so that you don't have to go up or down half a level of stairs in order to gain access to a toilet room as you do in the current configuration at the library. We're introducing a new public stair and a new elevator together with a new south entry, and I'll refer to this in a minute in the exterior design, but the new south entry allows us to take advantage of a lot of parking spaces that are located along the south side of the building currently. The only addition that we're putting on the existing library building is a small vestibule at the south entry piece here. Otherwise, it includes a canopy piece that's very similar to the canopy piece that we're proposing for the north entry, again, so that the entries to the library are easily visible for any visitor who comes to the library building. So the elevator then makes this entry, this south entry, which is about 4 feet lower than the existing floor elevation for the upper floor. So imagine when you come in to this entry, you're at a kind of intermediate landing. You go up 4 feet to arrive at the adult services nonfiction collection on the upper floor. Right adjacent to that is also a service desk that again serves a kind of security function as well as a service function for the library, being located right next to this public entry into the building. The new elevator allows people in wheelchairs and makes this a universally accessible entry so that if you're in a wheelchair or have difficulty walking or getting up and down stairs, you can use this elevator to get from this intermediate landing up to the adult services collection on the upper floor or down to the lower level that's located here. Again, this new stair and elevator are kind of centrally located within the building. So as you move up and down in these entries in the building, you're always kind of centrally located within the building, which makes it much easier to navigate to where you want to go inside the library building. going to quickly go through the floor plans, which is kind of another way of looking at the drawings that we just looked at. They provide a little more detail. And again, for reference, this is Front Street out here along the top. This is Kingston Avenue along the left-hand side. So in this drawing, north is up. This is the north parking lot that's shown here, and this is the lower level plan. So again, here you can see the amount of gray space that represents existing space in the building that will remain substantially as it is right now as a way of controlling costs. Here you can see where the new entry is located, kind of centrally in between youth services on one side and adult services on the other side. And then at the back here, this is the new elevator and stair that provide access up to the upper floor. We're trying to also increase the number of parking spaces that we have in the north parking lot. It's very limited because of the existing detention pond that's located in the northeast corner of the site, but we are proposing to extend the north parking lot to the west in order to pick up a few more parking spaces in this north lot to maximize the amount of parking near the entry into the building. As we go up to the upper floor, you can see then the south parking lot, and there's a lot of parking that's available here. So by adding this new entry into the building off of the south parking lot, we are really getting many more parking spaces closer to an entry to the building than it's ever had before in this scheme. Again, the gray area that you see here is the back of house staff area, which is being reused. There's an existing fire stair here that we're also leaving in place. Here is the entry in the new vestibule that you use to enter from the south parking lot. This is a landing, that kind of intermediate landing that I was referring to. There's a stairway that goes up 4 feet to get to the upper level here, or goes down about 8 feet to get down to the main lobby space on the lower floor. And then here's the new elevator that allows you to be able to access all of that if you're in a wheelchair or have other mobility issues. Going quickly now go through some of the exterior preliminary renderings. And one of the things that I want to point out, there's been a question raised about how far we are in the design process. While a lot of this looks like it's fairly developed, we are at the beginning of the design process. We are much closer to the beginning than the end. And so there is a lot of development yet to be made in this, a lot of input that we are still going to need from both staff and community in order to develop the design before we get it into its final form. This is a rendering that shows the proposed new north entry for the building. It's kind of a standalone piece that doesn't really interfere with existing construction and foundation systems on the existing building. We're proposing to put a new sloped roof on it that has some elements of the pitched roof residential design in the nearby residential neighborhood. This kind of upturned piece, if you will, as a welcoming gesture, again, to really provide an easily identifiable entry into the building and also to start to change the character of the building as well. And in this image, you can also see off to the left-hand side here, this is that new drive-up service. So we're taking advantage of the existing one-way road that comes down here right now to introduce a new drive-up service window right off of the circulation department. So really right where it needs to be functionally for the library. This is an aerial view from the northwest corner of the site looking back towards, this is the north entry that you see here. And then on the flip side, this is the south entry that you see on the other side. So this is the north parking lot, which has two-way traffic here. Front Street is just off the image here to the left. Kingston Avenue is just off the image here on the right. And then this is the one-way parking lot along the south side of the building that provides access to the new south entry here. There's also a kind of clarity in terms of the organization of the building with this new plan that you can see even in the building massing where the one-story portion, the original portion of the library, is really the youth services area right now. The two-story portion that was added in the 1980s becomes dedicated to adult services. This is an image of the south side of the project, the south entry, and again, we are intentionally trying to make the north and the south entries look similar so that they're clearly identifiable as Lyle Library District elements and where you enter the building. There's an idea here that's yet to be developed of possibly taking advantage of this very long, low wall where you come in off of Kingston Street, and is there a possibility to use that for signage or some other function on the building? And then finally, this is another aerial taken from the northeast corner of the building. Again, for reference, this is Kingston Avenue up at the top. Front Street is off to the right here. This is the north parking lot. This is the north entry here. This is the drive-up window with the one-way traffic that allows us to get a car up to the drive-up window on the right side the way that it needs to be. And then on the other side, you can see the south parking lot and the south entry. And what I'd like to do now is show you the model, the computer model, that provides a little more a little more clarity with respect to the way the design is worked out. So what you're looking at here is a site plan, and the road that you see along the top here, this is Front Street. This road off on the left-hand side is Kingston Street. This is the south parking lot, and this is the north parking lot that has two entries onto Front Street here. This piece in the center is the new proposed north entry to the building. This piece on the flip side is the new south entry piece to the building. And so this is a little animation that will just kind of flip through a few of these views and give you a sense as you move around the library how these pieces all come together. It's a fairly complicated site because of the topography, and it's easy to get disoriented. So this is flipping around to look at the north side of the building. Right in the center there, you can see the new north entry. In the foreground is Front Street. And then as this shifts around, this gives you a view of what you would see if you come in off of Front Street, off of one of those existing entries off of Front Street. Again, looking back towards the new north entry, and then zooming in on the new north entry to give you a sense of what that looks like and how it integrates into the rest of the building. You can see the drive-up window over on the left-hand side there. And then as we zoom back out, here's that aerial view where you can see the north entry on the one side, the south entry on the other side. And then this will flip around to look at this from the end of the building, which I think provides a pretty clear idea of the way these two entries, the one on the north side and the one on the south side, kind of work together in the building. You can imagine coming in from either entry and landing at essentially the same spot in the building. This is the view that you would get coming in off of Kingston Street. This is one-way traffic. And again, the view looking towards the new south entry piece. As we flip around here, you'll see the south elevation. And again, the south entry piece in the center there. The existing meeting room is off to the right in this view. As we zoom in here, this is kind of a repeat of that south entry perspective that we looked at a minute ago. And as we zoom out again and flip around to the other side of the building, so here you're looking at it along the length of the building again with the south entry on the left and the north entry on the right. The white pad area that you see in the foreground there is an opportunity for an outdoor program space that could be used in conjunction with the meeting room space inside. And then the other aerial view where you're looking down on the drive-up lane and the north entry in the background, and then what that view would look like if you were in a car approaching the building from that perspective. So that's what we have as far as a presentation. I can let this run again if that would be useful for everybody to see, but I'll pause here and see if there are any questions or comments.
Are there any trustee questions or comments? Treasurer Norton, I think I saw your hand.
I have several, but I'll just start with the one that is most recent to what was discussed. And then I'll let other people take a turn. I don't need to ask a bunch of questions at once, but for the east former entrance potential program space pad area in the rendering, it doesn't seem to show where there is currently overhang. Is this contemplating that that goes away, or what would is it just not shown?
It's not shown because we really don't know if there's a need for it. So I think the nature of that outdoor program space is something that, you know, I mentioned that we're early in the design process and that there are a number of things to be figured out as we move forward. And I think this is one of them. This is an important one. We need to understand better the nature of the outdoor activities that will take place there, how often they happen, you know, who is it that's using it. And I think based on the use that that space will get, we can make a better determination about whether there's value in keeping the existing overhead entry piece there or not. One of the things that we want to avoid is having a piece that, you know, we're going to great lengths here to clarify the building entries. And one of the things we want to avoid is having a third piece on here that might be mistaken for an entry piece on here. But it could very well be as we develop this that there's a functional use to keep that.
I'm sorry. Is that good for now, Treasurer Norton? Or do you want to get more?
Yeah, I just wanted to cherry pick one for starters, let other people talk, and then I'm gonna try to figure out what my most important next question is.
Okay. Trustee Duffy, I think I saw your hand.
So thank you for that walkthrough. The idea of adding those additional spaces to the north side, right? Is that basically because since it's like the main entrance, you're adding additional spaces there to drive traffic to that area? Now, the reason, before you answer, sorry, maybe a little bit rhetorical there, but the other question, the reason why I asked this is we got a lot of parking lots, and I don't know. I mean, if both, and let's say in concept, both entrances are really nice, do the job of driving people into the centralized part of the library, even if you have a main entrance, I don't necessarily see a need or the cost to add additional spaces to it. We have a lot of blacktop already at this location. I think, is that why you guys kind of thought about adding that to the north side?
You know, we have been through so many iterations of figuring out how to maximize parking near the entries to the building that I think you're right to point out that this might be an idea that was more relevant in some of the past iterations of the design than it is now. So I think, you know, what we're interested in doing is making the library entries as convenient as possible for people. And that little north lot extension, which happens, you know, it's the little piece that happens down at the end here. You know, what we gain is 6 cars. Is it worth that gaining that 6 cars? Not only for the additional blacktop here, but this is not a great parking area, because imagine if you turn right to find a parking space and all of these spaces happen to be filled. Now you have to kind of back out in order to get out of that. So I think it was introduced as a way of maximizing the number of parking spaces as near the front doors as we could get them. But I think you're right to point out that with the development of the south entry and taking advantage of all the parking we have on the south side, this may not be a necessary piece anymore.
Well, I'll mention something. I will admit that part of extending the north lot was due to new visitors coming to the library, and because our address is Front Street, they do come in off of Front Street and try to find a spot in the north lot. And they do that now, even though it's an employee lot. So that was the impetus to add a little bit more parking there. And we took away the option of, and this was for financial reasons, but in using the retention fund, that was just not financially feasible. So we were looking to expand the parking in a small way on the north side because of that fact.
I'll add one other thing too, just thinking about where we're at today and how much needs to be developed before this project becomes a reality, is these types of comments are good to have now so that they're thought about at this stage. And, you know, whether the parking lot on the north side expands by those 6 spaces or not, those are things that can evolve as the project goes, and not that you have to decide that now. So I think one of the things that we didn't hit on maybe early enough in discussion, I probably should have hit on a little bit earlier, is that keep in mind all of these pieces are really to try to get the get consensus on what is important for the project. And, you know, in other words, does youth services need to be right next to an entrance and on the first floor? And in addition to making sure the spaces are roughly in the right spot, is the budget something that the board is willing to move forward with? So just keep that in mind, but keep those comments coming. Trustee Larson.
So I have a question. When, like, you guys get your deliveries for UPS, FedEx, whatever, do they come to the north side? Am I correct? Like to that far end before the new next 6 parking spots are, that gray pad?
Yeah, we receive a couple of deliveries a day, and the trucks are generally of the UPS variety.
Yeah.
And
Right.
they'll come in and deliver boxes there where you see the gray kind of driveway.
Right.
And then they leave, yeah.
Okay.
Vice President Bartelli.
Okay, Don, don't shoot me. I'd like to ask, is the drive-up window, that will not be recessed into the building? It will be currently at the curbside? The reason I ask, at one time, we had two-way traffic coming up and down the hill. Now, if you come in the 2 Kingston entrances and they're full, I think that parking lot would be first choice to come into youth services. Having 2 lanes, if it doesn't interfere with the drive-up window, would give you the ability to not have to back out onto Front and go around to Kingston, as you mentioned earlier.
Right.
I don't know that it would interfere on the Kingston side. That seems to be wide enough there that you could have two-way traffic. We can't circle all the way around the building like we had in our initial west entry.
Right.
So I'm just asking about the drive-up window and the possibility of two-way traffic. Because as I said, we did have that before, and it did work.
So I think this is really a safety issue that's related to adding the drive-up window here.
Okay.
It might be that physically there's enough road width to have 3 lanes of cars necessarily. The problem is that in order to access the drive-up window, you have to get the driver's side window right up against the building, right? Which is on the wrong side of the road. So imagine if I added another car here in between these 2 that was facing the other direction, because we had two-way traffic. That would mean that in order to access the drive-up window, you'd be coming down this road, you'd have to cross that lane of oncoming traffic in order to get to the drive-up window, and then cross that lane of oncoming traffic again to get back into in the direction that you want to head to get out. So I think it's really a safety and a traffic issue that results from adding the drive-up window on the north side of the building.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. I just was wondering, the drive-up window is flush with the curb right now as it exists. So I've seen some drive-up windows where there's a recess, an actual pull-in.
Yep.
But that's not in the plan. So I understand the safety issue. Thank you.
Oh, I didn't see Secretary speak there.
Thank you. Don, this is perfect that you're on this screen right here. One of the things that I just wanted to point out to everyone when we're talking about the amount of parking spaces on this north side of the building, currently we have a sidewalk that wraps around the north side of the building and leads up to the current east entry. And with putting in the drive-up window here, we're going to lose that sidewalk. And so what's going to happen then is that it's not going to be easy to get to the north entrance from, say, the east parking lot or the south parking lot. They're going to have to all go to the south entrance. And so I know we were talking about, those 6 spaces at the end of this north lot, and if they're necessary or not. And I'm feeling like right now, in light of the fact that we don't have that ease of taking a sidewalk up to the other entrance or down to this entrance, from the east parking lot, that it would behoove us to have those 6 extra spaces down there. So I was just kind of looking at it from that way. I know that I have taken that sidewalk that's currently there, in the past. So I just was thinking about that as we were looking at it.
Oh, it's a good point.
Rusty Duffy.
So, Don, if you don't mind, can you go back to maybe your first image that you showed had the internal, first floor, the youth
Sure.
services and everything? While you're getting there, Mark, this is actually a question for you first, or I want you to check me on my statement, because I know during the public comment there was a question about space, whether we were losing square footage or not. What is this design that you have, that we are looking in front of us, a more efficient use of what space we have? And one of the priorities that I know this board has been talking about and President Hummel, maybe you can verify this for me, the last few years has been making sure that the youth services department's needs were getting met. I think that has come through from multiple different angles that we know our youth services department is all. So does this meet one of the requirements that we put on? I think is it a 60% increase in the youth services size, give or take? I just want to verify that. I know that's in our board packet that's posted online.
Yes, and you can, visually check that yourselves. If you look at the plan we're looking at right now, the small second floor area that is up there, not the whole area, but just the areas with the stacks and the red service desk right now, makes up the white area. Essentially, makes up the entirety of the youth space that currently exists today. And you can see that there's one bank, let's call it, at least in this visual, of youth space. When you do the renovation, the additional space is approximately 60% increase, because you're also gaining, keep in mind, not only the stack space that's here, the red desk that's in the lower level, but also the area that Don's highlighting right now, which is the additional program room. So you're gaining a lot of extra space down there.
And
We're also adding a couple of family restrooms that are, easily accessible from the youth services area here.
The only way to get restrooms, I know the one comment was, can we put restrooms up on the second floor and leave the youth space where it is currently? The issue with that is you're making a too small area smaller, because you'd have to remove space from the youth services area to put the restrooms in. And to answer the overall floor plan does not decrease in size. It is going to slightly increase in size. As Don said, we've worked over the past little while to make sure that we're comfortable with the budget numbers at a high level, that we think that there is the opportunity to have vestibules at both the new north main entry as well as the new south entry. And in fact, the south entry vestibule is popped out a little bit from the buildings.
So let me just make sure that I recap that in my brain. So in essence, meeting one of the core tenets of what we wanted as a board, as we kind of went through going through this adventure here, is we get a youth services department that is comprehensive to that specific patron base, which is they have a larger space, they have the program room, they have access to family restrooms, which I know is important for mothers and nursing mothers as well. And it's all on the first floor versus what currently is on the upper floor. I'm just reiterating that so that I make sure that I'm seeing this fully.
You're correct. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Sullivan.
Just more of a comment on this particular diagram. Is north and the south are kind of oriented in a way that is opposite of what I would have expected, and would make it easier for me to understand this diagram if it were oriented the same way as subsequent diagrams. So
It's an interesting observation, and that's the way we actually had the first diagram, was oriented the other way. And the reason that we flipped it around was because if we flip this one around so it's oriented more similarly to the floor plans that we have, this wall along the back side of the library covers up your view of the elevator and the stair and a lot of these areas that are located along the back side of the building. We don't have that problem with the view that we have here right now, because in the foreground we have largely large open spaces. So we gave up, I think, clarity in terms of from one point of view by flipping it around, but I think we gained clarity in terms of being able to understand what's actually happening inside the building.
well, since I can't compare the two, I don't know what to say, except that if I were a patron, and we heard today from patrons that are saying we're not seeing communications pieces, I think I would have a hard time fitting this into the next couple of subsequent pages that are in the packet. But, if you're saying this is better than having it the other way, then so be it.
No, I think the observations that you're raising are legitimate observations, and I guess it was our hope that by also including the exterior perspectives, that if you looked at all of the things together, it would start to make more sense. I think for example, getting the north and the south entry canopy pieces on this diagram, we hoped was a way of being able to relate this drawing to the other drawings as well. But I think as we move forward, that's something that we'll take another look at.
The other trustees, Treasurer Norrell.
It's not really shown in any of the schedules within the packet or what's been presented so far, but do you have anywhere, and if not handy right now, then can you show us, after the fact, the sort of before and after square footage by area, so that we can kind of see, compare and contrast what stayed level, what increased, and what decreased?
Yes, we can.
I can't tell right now if we have more meeting room square footage or same or less. something like that.
Yes, yes, we can.
I will go next. And actually, I'm going to kind of do this in reverse order than I was planning since we've been talking about those additional north flats. I did walk the property, I think, over the weekend or the other day, and I kind of agree with Trustee Duffy. I see what obviously Secretary Swistak is talking about though too. So, that additional cost to dig into that hill and put in those spots. I was kind of going through the information you provided at that last meeting. So am I correct in assuming that whole part would be almost 294,000, or is that not?
I'd have to go and dig into it. I have not done any of that.
Does that number seem high though for just doing all that work? Or is that more that whole north?
It's that whole, I think that's more the whole, not just the north, but also leading into the west side, right? Because you are envisioning having to re-landscape that west side so you can actually see the front entry as well.
Yeah. Because I was starting to wonder, because when I was walking the property, because I was thinking, is that maybe that whole like west side of the building, like around Kingston, would that be better for outdoor program space? Plus, it's a little bit closer to youth services because having it on the east side, I mean, I know just not youth services possibly will be using the outdoor space, but I would assume the majority of it, they would have to walk pretty much across the whole building to get there. So I don't know if that. Now, you might have to sacrifice the 6 spots. So, I mean, it's something the board will have to discuss probably in the future because we don't make that type
No,
of
and
decision.
it's a good point. Yeah, whether the outdoor space is best served on east or west, I think those locations can be found, like you said. And the challenge with the west side, keep on having to check, is the slope, right?
Correct. I mean, there's going to be grading if you
Right.
visit that. So it's not
Then you're right, you
too
can-
bad, but I could see you got still grade. I
Right.
walked it. Then the other thing is, I know we're not touching some of these existing bathrooms, but are we still going to remodel the existing bathrooms? Okay, so you're at least remodeling.
Yes.
them. And I think Don just mentioned, I know I asked it last week, but just to confirm, the second family bathroom is next to that one. I just see family bathroom one time, but it's that space next to it.
2 of them together, yes.
Okay, gotcha. And actually, the question on youth services expanding has been asked. Where the south entry is, when I was walking, I know there's like a sewer right there. I'm assuming like where it looks like, I'm guessing where it's going to be. Is that going to have to be moved, or how is that going to work?
I know, and Don, maybe you can say it a bit better than I can. I know we had looked at that, or your engineers have looked at where the sewers were in relation to the site as handling storm water.
It's going to be probably where the south entry is, or right in that
I think
vicinity.
we're looking at.
So this is a civil engineering plan that shows those improvements. And so the entry that we're proposing on the south side is located right here.
Yeah.
So the structure that you're talking about, I assume, might be this one that runs more or less down the center. Does that sound right?
There was definitely like a sewer, like a
No,
main.
there might be the 10-inch line there, but those are buried. And if it is, we can take a look at it once you get into the details and whether it stays and, because we're building over grade, not going.
Yeah, after the meeting, we could look.
Right. Yep.
Um,
You're saying that there's an actual manhole.
yeah, there's like a manhole.
Yeah.
So that's.
Yeah, we can look at seeing.
Okay.
Okay.
And then, so where you're putting also the south entry, are you basically kind of using like where the windows are right now on the second floor kind of, or is it even a little bit, a few feet to the west of that? I'm just trying to visualize specifically, but I'm assuming is it like where the windows are kind of now? That still up in the air.
Looks like Don's trying to find an image maybe.
Yeah, so imagine this pier that you see on this side continues all the way across to the other side here. Our new entry is basically to the left of that. But I mention that pier because that's the way the windows are organized. So for example, if I zoom in here, you can see how there's a window on either side of that pier. It's the same thing on the other side of the building. So essentially on the other side, we're losing the window that's located on this side of the pier, keeping the windows that are located on the other side of the pier. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, it's about, I'm just kind of figuring out where it was. I mean, I know it's gonna be in that general vicinity, but I don't know exactly where the windows are. And I know I asked this in the past, and I'm pretty sure the answer is, want to confirm that second, or the current elevator is still gonna be accessible to the public. I actually have more questions, but I'll kind of pause there and let on the other trustees, and I see Secretary Swiss.
Can I just address something, just something that you brought up about the outdoor programming space?
Sure.
In general, I'm saying, in general, if the outdoor programming space were on the east side, it wouldn't be that patrons are traveling through the building. Generally, when we have programs, even in here in the meeting room, patrons just park and then come in to attend the program. So if we had an outdoor program, patrons would generally park and then just go to the spot. It wouldn't be like a travel, the only people traveling would generally be staff.
Okay. Secretary Swiss there.
Thank you. President Hemmel, you got me thinking about natural lighting when you were asking about the windows. So Don, I'm just kind of curious about with the two entrances and the vestibules, are you envisioning them being more like open to allow more natural light coming into the building?
Yes, and I'm gonna, let me flip back to the model. I think it might be easier to see there.
Okay.
So, I showed the one view from the other entry coming in off of Front Street. This is the
Right.
other side coming in. And so, yes, our intent is to make this as kind of glassy and open as we can,
Okay.
so that you can see activity inside the library building.
And then the other, because this is on the north side,
This
right?
is that's on the north side. The south side is treated
So the
in a very
south side,
similar
same
way.
kind of thing?
Yep,
Okay.
yep, exactly.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other trustee questions? Okay. Just, and we are keeping the book drop on the north side too, correct?
Yeah, I mean, the book drop is movable.
Okay.
We need to adjust its
Okay,
location.
because I was gonna say with that can make that, because there's gonna be a lot of traffic now going into that north lot, both with ingress and egress, and then people coming down. I mean, they're coming down the hill now anyway, but plus you got to drive through and all that. So I just wanted to make sure, because I mean, if it is, it's fine. And then I think I had one more. The so I guess I think Trustee Duffy was kind of, I'm probably going to take it a step or two further, but with that north lot though, is my only concern with that north entry, even with or without the 6 additional spaces, is I worry if, like, especially parents with young children, if they're going to obviously try to get to that north lot originally, and if that lot fills up, and I think actually Vice President Bartelli alluded to it as well, I just hope we don't create an aggravation where people then are they got to come in and go back out onto King, come out of that north lot, go up front through Kingston and wrap back around to the south side. That's my only concern with the north entrance, because you're utilizing that north parking lot. I just don't want to create people being aggravated right away, like, I can't get parking, and then they got to kind of come back.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the end of the world. I grant you that, and I mean, and I know you said right now there's already, once or twice a week somebody does that, but that could increase exponentially now, since it's like a destination for the public for sure. That's my only reservation with this north entry still. I don't know if any other trustees, I mean, if that's not a big deal, I mean, I just wanted to put that out there. That's my only reservation.
Well, I think that's why the increase of spots was introduced. And as you mentioned, we do have that issue now where people think there's an entry and there isn't. The good thing about, I think, this is that we also have a drop off. So if there was an opportunity to drop someone off, if there was no parking, they could drop some kids off and then find parking elsewhere. And I think signage would improve situation.
And I guess, over time, if that were to be a problem, I guess people would learn and just figure, well, I'm not going to bother with the north lot, just start with the south lot. So,
The good thing about this renovation scheme as it's evolved over the past few months is that you have an identifiable main entry for someone coming in the first time, but that regardless of whether you come in at the south or the north entry, you end up in the same location.
sure.
Whereas if you look at other options, you might not end up in the same location, which creates the security issues and things like that. So valid point to keep on to look at that though and make sure it's studied.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I think the board should look at, though, going back to, I think it was like Trustee Duffy's original question is with those 6 additional spots. Trustee Duffy.
You and me are agreeing too much tonight, President Hummel. And I thought about that, and that is a good point. But I think part of when I look at our patron, their learned behavior over the past several years and how they kind of interact with the facility, is that a lot of them know to park or have learned to park in the south lot, right? Or kind of just around there. So we'll still have patrons that probably still park there. And Tatiana, you brought up what I was thinking too, is the signage needs to be on point so that people know exactly where there is additional parking, if they are new, or something to that effect. But I think if this was like a brand new facility that was being dropped in unlike this and no one had ever come here, then my concern would be more towards the north lot than the south. But I think because so many people already know to park there, they're probably still in some way.
Fair point. I'll ask this, I know I asked this last time and I apologize, just to confirm though, that east lot that we're increasing 9 spaces, that's just because we're restriping it differently, correct?
Mhm.
Parker. I'll repeat the question. I know I asked this last month. The east additional
Right.
spot is to restrict.
The 9 additional spaces are for this area down here, which currently is the entry. So there's no parking there right now.
Gotcha.
In the previous scheme, without the outdoor program space here, and it sounds like there's still a little bit of a question about exactly where that's going to get located, but without that, then we can gain 9 spaces. Depending on the size of the outdoor program space down here, we're going to gain something less than 9 spaces, which is, so what we're showing is kind of a compromise position in this rendering where you can see there's some parking spaces, but there's also room dedicated to the outdoor program space.
Secretary Swistak.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment on what you were talking about before with the parking spaces by youth services. And I wanted to just point out that at the Nichols Library in downtown Naperville, it's street parking by the entrance that goes into the level where their youth services is. And then the parking lot is a community parking lot. So sometimes not even library patrons are parked there. And so, people have to drive around to find a spot to park there. And then also at the Downers Grove Library, same thing, their youth services is near the entrance that is on Curtis Street. Again, there's some street parking there, but then their parking lot is in the back behind it, which is also up a level too, upstairs. And so it's not like we would be the only library that would not have tons of parking by the youth services. But if we were comparing it to both the Nichols Library and the Downers Grove Library, we would have more parking by that level. So I just kind of wanted us to remember that too. It's not that we wouldn't have any parking here, that it would be super inconvenient. And as Trustee Duffy said too, a lot of people are used to coming in off of Kingston and then parking on the south side of the building and coming in that way too. So, I think that it would be okay, and that people would get used to it and figure out, okay, where do I want to park and how to go about it. But I don't think that's going to be a huge issue as far as that goes, especially with the entrances on both sides and the ease of getting up and down stairs by that south entrance.
Mhm.
Any other trustee questions or comments? Treasurer Norton, are you ready? Oh, you got a question?
Yeah, I'll venture a question in here. So, from the interior, there was one slide that it said, talking about meeting room space, it mentioned something about technology. So I was wondering to what extent, the concept factors in potential multi-use space, maker space, et cetera. What sort of, creative technology enhancements, updated technology in study rooms. What's going on?
So I can jump in a little bit on that one. So in terms of makerspaces, actually it's a discussion we had, and I'm going back, I think, a year and a half plus with staff a while back. And the floor plan didn't lend itself to having one dedicated room for makerspace equipment, just to live in and be used as a makerspace. The thought was makerspace type equipment could be used, maybe it's on a cart or something of that nature. And with the additional meeting space rooms that are here, it could be brought to the rooms when needed. So that way you're not locking yourself into one room with a large amount of square footage being used part-time. I think that correct.
It is, and actually, I think someone asked a question about, maybe it was you, Treasurer Norton, about the meeting rooms. The meeting rooms we're currently in are not changing in terms of square feet, but across the hallway on this diagram, there is space dedicated for more meeting rooms on the adult floor, and we could, we're trying to be as flexible as possible. So one of those spaces could be used for something as a makerspace. And as Mark mentioned, also having things on carts or able to move into a space so that a smaller group could do some crafting or whatever they chose to do in a quote unquote makerspace, 3D printing, things like that. That's how we envision using these extra study spaces.
And furthermore, on the meeting rooms, we would envision, whether it's a monitor mounted on the wall with some dongles or something like that, the typical library setup where there's some connectivity opportunities for patrons is what we'd anticipate in the smaller rooms that are being added. So you'd be getting the flexibility of the space with the maker side, and then also more technology for patrons to connect when they come in.
And the library, as you all know, budgets for technology upgrades every year. So that is built into our current and previous and future working budget. I understand that in this plan, we're also looking to upgrade some cabling throughout the buildings for some efficiency, as well as an intercom system that's a little less prehistoric than what we have right now. So we are looking to do those upgrades as well with this renovation.
Any other questions, comments? Right. So,
I keep on going through the list.
keep
Is there
going,
anything else
keep
from
going.
Don and their team?
do you have anything else, or should I kind of throw it back to Mark here?
That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your comments.